I'm going to go ahead and hit record. All right. Well, anytime you're ready, go ahead and do that.
Hey, I'm Dr. Gary Lawrence at rejectionjunkies.com, and you're listening to Jeff Smith with I'm sorry, I got screwed up. Erase
okay.
that. I'm sorry.
Right. No. That's good. That's good. I love it. Keep going. Or to take two if you want to.
Okay. Hello, I'm Dr. Gary Lawrence, and you're listening to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith. And you can reach me at okay, I gotta say my name and my website. Okay, let's go. Take three, Jeff.
Take three.
Okay. Hello, I'm Dr. Gary Lawrence at rejectionjunkies.com, and you're listening to Jeff Smith, Vroom Vroom Veer.
Perfect. And I love all the outtakes. I'm keeping it all.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna hit stop. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, no hurry.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Justin Skinner, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Beer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Great. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Excited to be here.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So you are at professionalfailure.com. So talk a little bit about, sorry, that's professional-failure.com.
Gotta remember the dash.
Gotta remember the dash. So tell us a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, I've really enjoyed hearing stories from other people centered around failure. So obviously I've got the book and then we've got the podcast and then, the Audible book and things like that. But beyond what I'm doing with the book and the podcast, I think just meeting people and hearing other stories, selfishly, I get to learn a lot from a lot of very wise, intelligent people that are saying, hey, I screwed up here. I did this. Here's the lesson I learned. So selfishly, it's been really fun to hear other people's stories.
That is the point of this show, right?
Yeah.
Because, and I say this pretty much every show, but I don't care. When you're looking at, if you were to look at the Instagram version of everybody's life, everything is awesome, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not.
And we all know that is simply not true, right? Nobody posts that toenail that's growing in wrong.
And the funny thing is when
Instagram.
you do,
right?
Yeah, when you do post it, everyone's like, I don't want to follow that. That's gross.
Exactly.
And so then
right.
It's like, it just doesn't work. So I hear you.
Yeah. Everybody just wants to see the highlights. Okay. So later on, we are going to talk about that one time with squirrels and mothballs. And I can't wait to hear about squirrels and mothballs. And then there's another story about that involves a ski lift. And I'm sure it's full of hilarity and maybe some injuries.
Hopefully you can laugh at me. Yes, at my expense, which I'm perfectly okay with.
I love it too. I think we get along on that point. Okay, so before we do that though, let's go back and talk about you growing up. So I've got some fun questions here. So what's your earliest memory?
That's a really good question. And it's really interesting you asked that because I don't have people, sometimes will tell stories of I remember when I was 4 and this. And I just don't have those memories. But for me, I don't, maybe the earliest memories I have are of my mom telling me, hey, you did this. And they're in my mind, but I don't play them out, if that makes sense.
Kind of vague.
Yeah, I think the earliest memory I have, though, is actually having a birthday party. I don't even remember how old I was, but having a birthday party, and my mom made me a basketball cake. It was an orange cake, and she's really good. She would make us, all whatever cakes, like Ninja Turtle cakes, whatever. But
that's awesome.
That, if I'm going back, is my first memory that I really remember is having an orange basketball cake at one of my birthday parties.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I can share. I don't know how this worked out. But somehow I asked my mom for a bunny cake.
That's awesome.
The bunny cake was not really all that hard for my mom to make.
That's awesome.
But it was awesome for me, right? I mean, it was the best.
Yeah.
So you had a basketball cake, and that would be more work. So,
Yeah,
good on
definitely.
her.
And I mean, she was like, she still does. Her and my sister actually still do cakes to this day, and they're making like cows and these like
Oh,
ridiculous
wow.
like cakes now, and they just do it, for friends. But I remember I mean, it wasn't like she just iced the thing. She's taking the little squeeze, I forget what they're called, the icing
The icing
packets,
bag or whatever.
and like one dot at a time. That's what I
Oh,
remember about my
wow.
basketball cake. It was like
Right.
one dot at a time, and just the
That's
amount
amazing.
of time
Yeah.
and effort she put was pretty special.
You really appreciate it now. At that time, you probably were just like, my mom's great and this is awesome and everything is awesome, right? But
Exactly.
later on, you realize, right?
Exactly. I feel like that happens a lot to me.
Yeah, you appreciate how awesome that is later. Yeah, as a kid, you kind of like just think everything's supposed to be, served up to you like that.
Yeah, exactly.
At least I did. I was the youngest of 3 kids. So anyway, that's great. I love that. I think I made up a story about my first memory. Like if I'm really honest about what my first memory is, it's sort of like you're saying, it's like kind of vague, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember having one of these moments where I'm just sitting around and it's like loud and there's lots of kids and we're all playing, and I have this thought of, wait a minute, what was before this?
That's funny.
and then I was like, whatever, and then I go about, playing with whatever we're doing. The advertised first memory was, I think I was 4, and I was really upset because the last neighborhood kid was starting kindergarten and I had another year to wait. And I was upset because I was like, who the hell am I going to play with?
Yeah.
With him going to school now. And I remember being a little sad. Me. I'm going to mark that one down as the most coherent 4-year-old memory. Okay.
And I don't know if I should tell this story. And it's this is the first one that I can actually play in my mind. And I told this the other day. I called the friend, and I'll tell you how weird it is after you'll realize it. But kindergarten, for some reason, I had a really good friend who I still see to this day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I can't remember who it was, but basically we went out to recess one day at kindergarten, and someone dared us to poop our pants. So as weird as that sounds, I don't think I've ever told this story to anyone outside, like my wife and close friends, but
wow.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, so someone dared us, and me and another friend, I can't remember who it was, but I remember standing by a tree, and both of us just said, 3, 2, 1, and we pooped our pants. And then we went in. Yeah, it's just nuts. Yeah, and like awesome. not only like just us two, but then we had a crowd around us like witnessing it because they dared us, so everyone had watched.
Right.
So we went inside, and I remember vividly like sitting down in the chair and just sitting down in a mess of poop. Yeah, and I know it sounds gross.
It is,
but for some reason it's stuck in my mind. And then obviously I had to go to the nurse's office, get a change of clothes. I had to call my mom, and like my mom's like, "What the heck are you doing? Like you're potty trained. You don't do this." And I was like, "Someone dared me." So
what did she say to that?
I don't even remember what she said, but I remember her being a little disappointed that it was kind of embarrassing. But I called my friend the other day and said, "Hey, Jeff." His name was Jeff, actually.
Okay.
I said, "Hey, Jeff. Do you remember this moment?" He said, "Yeah, it was right by the tree that looked like it detailed the tree, but it wasn't
super vivid."
Yeah, he remembers it too, but he doesn't remember who did it with me. So all that to say, memories are just funky things. How like you can share them with different things. I don't remember. I remember so many details except someone's face who I shared the memory with.
Kid was.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy sometimes. So I hope that story's not too gross for your listeners. No,
not at all.
There it is.
You know what? That makes me think of something. So I had a IT job in Inglewood School District in SoCal. So Inglewood there's a lot of Title I schools, right? So lower income bracket schools.
Yeah.
That doesn't really matter, but that's mostly where I was spending my time. And I had this epiphany, right, about shame and embarrassment, right? So I think it was definitely elementary school. I don't remember the grade, but it was something like 2nd or 3rd grade, right? So pretty young kids, right? And the teacher is lining them up to go do one of those things with parents, right? Where they do like a big conga line of kids, and then they all have to sing or dress up or whatever the hell they're torturing them with.
Yeah.
Right. And she's lining them up, and I just happen to be there, because I'm working on the computers. And she's like, now don't touch your butt when you're in line and let the parents see you, because you'll be ashamed. And I was like, that's how we learn shame.
Isn't it crazy? Yeah.
The adults tell you what is shameful, right?
Yeah.
Because at that moment, now you would be horribly embarrassed if you crapped your pants in front of a big crowd of people. In kindergarten, you had no clue that was part of.
Yep.
That was the sort of the innocent shameless, right? That's pretty awesome.
Which then again, I'm very glad that I learned to not be proud of just pooping my pants randomly in, places, because it would be a mess, and I don't think I would have a wife.
But you were totally okay with it, right? All the way up until somebody told you that that's a bad idea.
Exactly. Like, hey, you should probably take better care of yourself, have better hygiene. So looking back, I'm glad my parents taught me.
Of course.
Taught me that lesson.
That was one of my my favorite jokes from Howie Mandel.
Yeah.
He was like, at some point I realized how I'm going to get over this having a daughter, and then all these other dudes are going to be wanting to date her. Just don't potty train her, right? He was
awesome.
always like, that was my rule. If a chick shits in my car, she's going home.
That's awesome. I love it. I'll have to look back and watch that skit.
Very good joke. Anyway, okay, so lovely. Thank you for playing along. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going through a list of questions that might be awesome. All right. So if you could talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you say? This is like a time travel one.
Yeah, that's a good question too. Like, these really make me think. Man, what would I say? I would say, again, like just don't fear failure. Because I think for me, what I've learned, and again, like to this day, and what I talk about is just, there really is, and you kind of mentioned shame too. There's this shame around failure, whatever it is.
Right.
So I would tell myself to start or stop fearing failure at a younger age, and just say, hey, go after this. Try this, work hard. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I would tell my younger self, stop fearing failure at the youngest age possible.
The kid crapping his pants. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry about when the kids laugh. And I mean, still to this day, I mean, I guess I'm glad I did it, because it's a kind of a fun memory, story, if you will.
It is. It's a fun story, but like I can't imagine like everybody like cheering you on. It
was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It was, but I had good friends. I still have good friends to this day. So it wasn't like, they just hung me out to dry. They did it with me. So whatever.
And they congratulated you. Way to go, dude.
I remember high-fiving. Yeah, we literally high-fived each other on the way in. So
That's
whatever.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's see. This one may or may not work out, so that's okay. How would you describe a perfect day when you were young? And you can pick the age.
Perfect day when I was young. Yeah. Honestly, probably from the time I was 5 to 12, my perfect day would be waking up, eating breakfast, and then playing baseball for like 10 hours out of the day.
Holy
then coming home and eating dinner and going to bed. I loved it. I loved baseball. And I loved doing active things. So for me, any chance I get, I would pick up Indian ball games or baseball games or whatever it is. And so that would be a pretty fun, perfect
That would
day.
be a perfect day. Right.
Yeah.
I have to think about it. Like when I was a kid, we did a lot of dumb stuff.
Me too.
I was never really into sports. That's a whole nother world of story between me and my brother, and like quitting Pop Warner football. I don't really want to get into it.
Yeah.
But I think we were playing like weird games. I think my perfect day would be like what you're saying. I remember like running around and doing like a water balloon fight in the summertime with a bunch of girls that I thought were cute. right? And that was like middle
Yeah.
school age. That was an awesome day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been fun. Yeah, we had plenty of water balloon fights. I would do anything along those lines. We could make up games or whatever
Right.
it was, but I just like games in general. So
Yeah.
I hear you with the water balloon fights. Those
Yeah.
are way too fun, and I still did those in college too. So I don't know if that's
that's awesome. I
still haven't grown up.
I can admit something to the world. So like grown up version of a water balloon fight is called a combat dining in the military. And it's like a squirt gun / water balloon fight somewhere in like a hangar or something, right? So there's all these grown-ups and we're all wearing our uniforms and we are like dunking each other. We got super soakers. We got like water balloons everywhere. And it's just the best thing ever. I mean, you can't actually like have any sort of like formal activities at these things because they just become a chaotic mess like immediately.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
It was awesome.
It reminds me of another story. And if I'm telling too many stories, just tell me and cut me off.
No, not at all.
In college, we would get sometimes a little bored at night, and we lived right next to basically a little 4 building with all the Chi Alpha, what are the fraternities and sororities?
Right.
They all live together.
Right.
So me and a friend, probably 3 or 4 times, would blow up tons of balloons. We'd climb up out on the roof. We're on like a 2-story apartment building.
Right.
And we would launch water balloons across the street into the little courtyard where the sororities would throw parties.
Okay.
And so, but it was dark. It was pitch black. No one knew. And we could shoot them up so high, they would come straight down.
Yeah. And they had no clue.
One knew.
Wow.
No clue where they're coming. So we would shoot them and like they would explode and someone would get hit with water, but then they'd look around like it was raining and they'd have no idea. So I don't ever remember hitting anyone, but we would just drop these. Yeah. We would drop these water balloons in and people just would think it would be raining and they'd be so confused. They'd take a step over and then we'd launch one on the other side of them. And it was just really fun. And honestly, I don't know that anyone ever knew that we did that, other than the people we lived with. So, but it was cheap laughs and obviously small water balloons, but no one ever got hurt or got wise to it. So.
Yeah. Good for you. The stealth water balloon bombings.
Yeah, which maybe I shouldn't give that idea to other people, but whatever.
I think it's awesome. Did you have like big medical grade launching thing? Like
we did.
Yeah. Okay. The medical
so
tubing.
we need 3 guys. Yeah. So either 3 guys or we had to tie off one end and hold the other end. So
wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was pretty. So all that to say, I still enjoy water balloons water balloon fights to this day. So any chance I get with nephews or nieces and they're like, hey, you want to do a water balloon fight? I'm like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Get the super soaker too. Why not?
Exactly. I'll try. Yeah. I'll do that next time.
All right. So let's see. This is a good one. So did you get into trouble? What's the worst thing you did? Okay.
Yes.
So that one might have counted. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually should have gotten in trouble for that. I didn't.
Okay, good.
But yeah, I would say I got into trouble growing up quite a bit, funny enough. But the worst thing that I did, like there's some things I got caught doing and there's other things I didn't get caught doing. So probably the worst thing I felt guilty about is I actually in high school, again, it was from, this is going back to just a friend daring me to do something. It was stupid, but this is where I've since learned to say no to things. But,
right.
We were in a store and I forget, maybe it was American Eagle or something. And someone dared me to try and steal a necklace. And so I was walking around and I wound up dropping the necklace in a bag and stealthily got out and I stole it and didn't get caught.
Right.
And that was really, really dumb of me, like looking back. And I remember, for 24, 48 hours, just feeling like shame and guilt for doing this, for stealing this when I didn't it was like a $10 necklace. Like it was like I could have easily paid for it.
Yeah.
But I think it taught me a good lesson where it's like, it's not worth
feeling shitty. Right?
No.
For as long as you have to feel shitty for.
Not at all. So yeah, that was one example of me not getting in trouble really, but I took it back and like apologized and they didn't, press charges thankfully or anything. But yeah, I felt bad for it. And then really overall, I think I was just more curious as a kid. And so I did a lot of things. I was kind of bored in school. So I would do a lot of, dumb things in school, but my parents were always really good about saying, okay, Justin, you did this. they didn't shame me. And I know we talked about shame, but they just said, hey, you did this. This act was bad. Don't do this anymore. You're a good kid. We know you're a good kid.
Oh, wow.
Here's your punishment. Let's move past it. So they were very good
That's
with
awesome.
discipline, but
Yeah.
I never felt like a bad kid, even though honestly, I probably did a lot of things that were looked upon as bad and stupid, and I could have easily been a bad kid. But
Right.
I think my parents really helped me navigate through that.
Yeah, for sure. So I was going to ask a question, a follow-up. Okay, let's see. What were you talking about? Damn it. I hate it when that happens.
Stealing necklaces in school in trouble. I was in ISS.
I was going to give you I was going to give you credit for having balls to go give it back. I don't think I would have done that.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been brave enough to go give it back. But good on you. Yeah. So it made
and
you
I'm
feel
sure I didn't
better
do it
too,
correctly. It was just and I think even giving it back was like maybe even I don't remember it vividly, so maybe it was even like just going to the store and just hanging it back on the shelf and walking out. Like
gotcha.
I didn't want it on my conscience, but I
Gotcha.
didn't walk in with a manager and sit down and all that. I don't remember any of that. So
so you just put
had
it back on the shelf and left.
Yeah, I just had to get rid of it.
I might be able
I
to get away with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had to get it out of my conscience.
I get it. No, I get it. Yeah. Anyway, okay. So thanks. That all really good stories and really good answers. So, okay. So let's say you are, what did you do immediately after college, let's say? And actually, let's talk about like some of your sporting career, because I know there's a lot of good stories. And so you were a collegiate athlete. Talk about your athletics a little bit.
Yeah, so I love baseball. I love baseball since I was young, but I wound up playing college in baseball. My goal was to play Division I and then play professional baseball.
Oh wow!
So
okay,
so I wound up playing it at a junior college for 2 years. And again, the goal was either to get drafted or go to a D1. So I stayed there for 2 years. It was like going through the military. From what I heard, it was really tough. Mentally, it really helped me a lot.
Okay,
and then I went to a 4-year. And wound up playing both. I was a two-way player, so I had a successful college career. And just based on that success, I thought the next step was professional. And I had some friends that had been drafted, and I had played with a lot of guys that had been drafted. So I just assumed that's kind of where my path was headed.
Okay.
Long story short, I wound up at the end of my senior year having a tryout with the Cubs, and they, came to the end of the tryout and said, "Hey, we like you. Here's a draft number. We'll draft you. We'll see you on draft day."
Wow!
So
Holy
draft day rolled around. So I'm thinking I'm engaged at that point, and my wife and I, future wife, were talking about, hey, we're going to do some traveling, all this. And then when the draft was over, it just didn't happen. So it was really just punishing, to be honest, and we really had to pivot. So one of those things where you just sit, and again, that's kind of maybe one of the genesis of professional failure. It's sitting down and thinking my life is headed one way and then it doesn't. And through all of it, you just have to realize, am I a failure, or, is my life just leading somewhere else? So there was just a weird, odd piece that I had of just my baseball career was over. And even though I loved it and I spent so much time and sacrifice in it, I just, for some reason, my life was headed another direction. So I was okay with that, even though it was hard for several years. And then, right after college, I just kind of buckled down and wound up getting a job, and then went into corporate world and marketing for a couple of years, publishing, and then it led to other things. But yeah, it was I would say 3 or 4 years outside of college. It was hard because I was just like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. This is not what my life is supposed to look like. So I was working through bitterness and things like that, for sure.
So it's almost like you put on this like identity of I am a failure at baseball or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And it's definitely something that you have to work through, because I dedicated 18 years of my life to doing that. And when it doesn't happen, when someone says, hey, you're not good enough, that hurts.
Bit of a, did it, I know this is going to sound a little weird, but did it sound like an identity crisis? Like who would I be, or who am I now that I can't play baseball? Because everything, all of your future projections were, I'm going to be a Cub, or I'm going to be a pro athlete, or and that's an interesting sort of like projection, right? I mean, I'm still, I bet if you put your mind on it now, it probably still hurts a lot. Right?
Yeah, and it's a good thought too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good thought because you work through it and all your conversations are based around, hey, it's Justin the baseball player, family, friends, whatever. Hey, good job at the game last night. Or
Right.
hey, how's everything? How's the season going? How's your travels? So it is. It's you think about, well, what am I going to talk about now? How are people going to know me? Am I just Justin the professional baseball failure that didn't make it?
Right.
Or, what do we transition to? So
ouch. Yeah.
yeah, but I think the good thing was understanding, and I had great mentors and people around me that helped me realize, everything that I had built, character traits, all that, they transferred to the next phase of life. It wasn't like I just I had the skill of playing a sport, but that wasn't all there was to me. So
Yeah.
it was just one moment of failure, and not that failure didn't reflect on me as a person.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think it hurts, obviously.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot, and I get that. But I think it also is something, it's a lesson that we all learn. And the lesson isn't as obvious, I think. I went through it. I mean, I think we all go through it. It's like just trying to figure out, like, first I want to say, like, people do this all the time. They say, like, I am blah, right?
Yeah.
I am a IT guy, or I am a football player, or I am a baseball player. I am and none of that's true. Those are just things you do.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You are always a human, or whatever the hell you want to call yourself, but that's what you are. All these other things are just like little masks that we put on to show the world, right?
Absolutely. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. So thanks for sharing. I'm sure that wasn't great. So, okay. So now you're working for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're kind of dealing with this idea of, now who am I going to be? So how did you come up with this idea of writing this book for professional failure? And how did that all come to be?
Yeah. So fast forward like 4 years into my working career, failure, number 2, 3, 4, whatever you want to call it. I got fired. I got fired from my job.
Okay.
So then
Yikes.
again, it's to the point where it's like, well, they don't want me. So I have to, it was a good lesson because I'm like, am I doing everything that I need to be doing to be a good employee, whatever? And the short answer is no. There were things that I did that didn't make me a great employee, and therefore I was fired. But
wow.
All that to say, it led to a lot of good things, and we started our own company, my wife and I, and then we got into design and photography, which led to real estate, which led to really having a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs.
Fun.
And the more conversations that we had, we would realize, like, there are a lot of failures within the entrepreneurial world, but they all look at failure a little differently, and so that's maybe in the back of my mind. And then I think I just got tired of hearing people like, hey, I'm successful, I make $10 billion a year, and this is why, because I do this and this.
Right,
and
right.
for me, it's like, well, that's good, and you are successful, but to me, you are successful because of failures and lessons from failures, not because you made every decision correctly and you're perfect.
Right.
So that was maybe the genesis. So I started writing on it. I started writing more. I actually wrote an article on infertility for a magazine, and I realized how therapeutic it was. And I just kept writing, and like the theme of failure kept coming up and up and up in my writing. So from there, I joined a writers group, and again, had a lot of great mentors that showed me how to do it and showed me how to form a book, and kept writing and writing. And then it
That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. So
it's a lot of work.
It was fun though. Again, it was therapeutic, and I'm still writing to this day. So it's been fun.
So you can actually sit down at a blank screen and just write.
Yeah. I think it is hard. I think it's a discipline. And honestly, there are some days where I sit down and I'm like, oh, this sucks, or I write, or I just feel like, oh, I'm not motivated. And the thing that helps is obviously reading. Because for me, I don't feel like I'm coming up with like all these original thoughts. If I can read, like right now, I'm like headlong in C.S. Lewis books, which he has some heavy
really?
books.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only know that one famous one.
The Chronicles of Narnia.
No, the other one. The one that's a list of 3 things, and I can't remember what it is.
Oh.
There's something about a wardrobe, and there's a mirror.
Oh, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe?
Yeah, there it is. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's his fiction
I think I
stuff.
read
But
that. Yeah.
It's really good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
obviously I love the movies too, but then he's got nonfiction work too, and he talks through like the problem of pain and grief and all, and it can get pretty heavy.
Okay.
But all that to say, like I love wisdom of old, and I love all these old writers that they can pull things out of you in a different perspective. So for me, if I ever get stuck, I just read, and then
Yeah.
from reading, I take notes, and then I can read. So the blank screen doesn't scare me like it used to.
Right.
But I can understand when you sit down and you're like, how am I going to pull thoughts out of my head? From what I found is mentors and books and podcasts, that's where my brain starts working.
Right. Okay.
Otherwise, if I sit down, I'm like, okay, what do I know? Like all knowing Justin, what do I have to share with the world? Most of the time it's nothing. It's just me collecting thoughts.
Yeah.
And be like, hey, I learned this from this person, or I learned this here. Let's combine two thoughts together. What would it look like for this?
Yeah,
so that's kind of my writing style, to be honest.
I think I'm starting to see that. Like that's about like where I was with the idea of me being some sort of authority about how to do anything. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, can that happen? I like to think of like me and my memories, right, and my life experience is like a black box. And how you pull that out is having a fun conversation, maybe with alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes you unique too. And that's the great is you have all this wisdom of old and all these stories and parables, but then each person applies it differently and they have different perspectives. And that to me is why you can write a book, because you can take your own stories and you can wrap it into a lesson that's you learned from somewhere else. And that's what
if I were ever to write a book like that, I would probably hire somebody to write it with me, and then we would talk the book, if that makes any sense. Like just a long series of chats, and they just record it all or something, right? And then transcribe it into a book.
I know plenty of guys that have done that, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, Frank Zappa wrote his book like that. So there's the real Frank Zappa book. It's awesome. And that's what they did. They just sat down and did what we're doing right now. And then they chatted for as long as it took. And then the book came out. I was like, I could do that because I don't want to sit down and type it.
Yeah, you should do it. You should do it because I was pitched on that too. Someone said, hey, I'll be your ghostwriter. Basically sit down and talk with me for 2 hours and I'll write a 200-page book. I'm like, well, that takes
2 hours
no time.
That's not long enough.
No, it's not long at all. But it almost like, based on that compared to how long, it takes writing your own and do all, the trade-off was like, well, maybe I'll do that down the road. But the writing is
that's more like a memoir. That would be like if you wanted to do a memoir. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So talk a little bit about like what's come after the book and maybe a little bit about the podcast, because I bet you have a blast on this podcast.
Yeah, the podcast is fun. The biggest, so the book and the podcast and all that, the most fun for me that's come out of this is just relationships. So being able to, meet people. I actually just got a video from a good friend who sent me a video, and he purchased a bunch of books, or I sent books to the Mizzou Tigers baseball team.
Okay.
So he sent me a video of like my book in all the lockers. So it's really cool. It was really cool to see. So for me, I think the fun part is I grew up on a farm, a dairy farm. So I have a lot of farming analogies. So I love looking at the book as like just planting seeds.
Yeah.
So like I'm planting all these seeds, and then I don't know what's going to come. Like, it's not like, I have this like timeline in my head, but I have had some really fun conversations that people said, hey, this book motivated me in this way. I'm trying this. That's been really rewarding. And then the podcast was fun, and it's been a really fun learning experience because
you're up to like 50 episodes.
Yeah, 50 episodes. So that will be nice, on our way to 100. And then I can look back, and as I'm going through, my first 10 episodes, I realized how terrible I was and how bad I sucked. But I went in.
That means you're doing it right.
So it's like I know my guests were great, and my guests were very gracious to come on the show with me.
Right.
But just looking back, how nervous I was, and I think that's part of the process too, is just saying, hey, I'm going into this knowing I'm going to be terrible. I'm going in writing my first book knowing it's probably not going to be the best ever written, but I'm going to do it. And then we will learn from there. And that's been the most fun part is, doing the book, the podcast. Even though I don't know everything, I'm just going to learn. I'm going to pick up tips from people along the way and hopefully get better.
No, I think you're probably like at least better than I was at show 50.
Well, that's only that's nice, very nice of you to say.
Well, and the good thing about me was I had like, I want to say about 60 shows of one podcast from way back when that nobody ever listened to, and it is thoroughly gone. So I got most of my cringe stuff out, right? It was just like, okay, that was fun and really sucked.
Yeah. But the suck is part of the fun.
Yes, for sure. Then I did another podcast for about a year and a half. And then I realized that I wasn't talking about the thing that was named the show. It was called Dink Lifestyle Business. Okay. So it was sort of like I was spitballing and just trying to come up with an idea of a podcast, and I wanted to monetize it, you see?
Yeah.
So I wanted to say something about business in there, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't talk about business, and we didn't talk about so DINK is an acronym for dual income, no kids.
Oh, interesting.
So my wife and I are dual income, no kids. So are you, by the way.
Yeah, we are too.
Right.
Yeah.
But we never talked about that because none of my guests were dinks.
Interesting.
So
I like the idea, but yeah, that's interesting.
Don't do it because it sounds like a good idea. And then you realize that nobody knows what a dink is because and if they think they know, it's something other than dual income, no kids, because it's.
And then, then they're like, well, I don't want to be a dink.
You're right.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to identify as a dink. Right.
Yeah,
You dink.
That's funny.
So that was another set of shows. I don't remember how many there were. Good thing, though, was because we didn't talk about dink or really business at all, I recycled a lot of those shows and made them vroom, vroom veer shows. So at least it was something useful.
Yeah, no, I love that you just went after it. You tried it, and then you pivoted too.
Yeah, spitballing. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. So anyway, okay, so let's let me see. Where should we go next? I have questions over here that were on your sheet, and some of them I liked. All right, so let's talk about how you learn to navigate failure. I mean, you've talked a little bit about that now, but let's do the thing where you say, I used to think about it like this, and how you've changed and how you reframed how you look at failure.
Yeah. I honestly go back to my parents at a young age, and I realize looking back how fundamental they were in my outlook of failure. And I like to kind of say, like, or at least give the visual of like a fence. It's almost like they allowed me to fail within this certain area. And then as I got older and I proved, okay, I can take this on and take this on, they expanded that fence. That's the way I like to look at it, because again, a lot of times they were very encouraging, and I'd mess up with something and I do something really stupid, and you can look at it as a failure, and they would say, hey, it's okay. Get back on the horse. Keep going.
Oh, that's
so I know
great.
They were very, very vital in how I formed failure. The other part is baseball. I do believe sports taught me a lot about failure, and I didn't always handle it well in baseball. But in baseball, I'm getting out 7 out of 10 times, and I'm still an all-star if I do that. So there's a lot of failure, a lot of moments of anger that I had to work through, like failing in sports, that I think have helped me to this day. And that's why I recommend, younger kids playing sports if they can, because it teaches you that you're not always going to win, and you may prepare really well, and you may be the team that should win, but it doesn't always go that way. And I think that transfers well to life as well. So those two things, I think parents and then my sports helped a lot.
Gotcha. So before we forget, and by the way, I agree with all of that. It's like the reframe of failure to be like a necessary part of the process.
Yeah.
It's like imagine trying to learn a new language and making sure you never ever say a word wrong. Mm-hmm. That's not going to happen. Right. Yeah. or like learning to walk, right? Like let's say you're a toddler and you get up and you fall down and you go, I guess walking's just not for me.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a great point.
Right. I mean, it's required, right? And it's not that big of a deal. I think we learn, again, when we talked about how those kids in second grade were taught how to be ashamed of things.
Yeah.
Right. That translates badly.
Yeah.
And it gets attached to failure. Right. And now we figured out that, perfect is, not great. Perfect is like near impossible for humans. It's an ideal, and I guess you can strive for it. Or maybe a better thing is excellence, right? You always want to keep failing so you get better at the thing you're trying to do, right? And
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we forget, squirrels and mothballs.
Yes. Yeah. So let me tell that story. So the last house we had, and I can set this up by saying squirrels I've always had this love-hate relationship with squirrels, where it's like I love watching squirrels, but then I also I don't know, they annoy me sometimes. So
interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know why. But anyway, I always wanted a pet squirrel too. I had a friend that had a pet squirrel once, and it was awesome. It was a flying squirrel. And
what was his name?
I don't remember. I don't remember the name, to be honest. But if I remember,
my pet squirrel was Charlie.
You did have a pet squirrel?
Not really, but I wanted one. So there was this squirrel that hung around, and I started calling him Charlie.
That's
and
awesome.
I wanted him to be my pet, but he's wild and he left.
Yep. Yeah. If you don't tame them young, they don't stick around.
No.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, I had this squirrel, like the last house we lived at, I had the squirrel that for some reason got in our attic, and we found out that it was not only in our attic, but it was chewing some wires in the attic. So we had to have an electrician come out and replace the wires. So I had to figure out how to get rid of the squirrel. I was trying to find a humane way to get rid of the squirrel and at least just chase him off. Mm-hmm. So I wound up researching, and I found out that mothballs would do the trick. So I went and bought mothballs, which I'd never heard of before. I'd never used them. I didn't realize how strong they were until I bought them and opened the package, and about knocked me over in the attic.
Right.
But I set them up in the attic where the squirrel was, and I kind of spread them all around our attic.
Okay.
It worked really well. They never came back. But about 2 days later, I wake up one morning and I walk into the kitchen. I'm like, all I can smell is mothballs. Throughout the whole house just started smelling like mothballs.
Wow.
So exactly. So it was, I had to go in the attic, pull all the mothballs out, and then get rid of them, obviously. And luckily the squirrel never came back. But I think I learned that really, like, there can be a solution that solves your problem, but then it just creates another problem.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
So with the squirrel never came back, but it took about a week to get rid of the mothball smell in our house. So,
wow. So describe mothball. What does it smell like?
Oh my goodness.
Is there another?
It's like a chemical punch to the face. I don't know.
Okay.
It's I don't know how to explain what a mothball. Yeah, it's a very chemical.
Yeah.
Let's say this. Let's like laundry detergent mixed with bleach. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if that,
it's got
if
a
that helps at all.
bleachy and a flowery kind of like.
It's just
fragrance.
A very unique smell, but when it hits you like bleach, it just kind of knocks you backwards.
Okay, gotcha.
So if you ever want to go experience it, just go open a pack and smell it. And
I had no idea what the hell mothballs were for, other than I was guessing moths. But
they keep moths away,
right.
But they'll also keep squirrels away. But I understand why, because a squirrel would
really
probably
stink.
just be unconscious. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
just knock its ass out.
Yeah. So don't put mothballs in your house. That would be my lesson. Yeah. To spread.
So what happened on the ski lift?
Yeah, so the ski lift was, I just learned how to ski this year. I'd never been to a mountain.
All right, I love it.
This year, yeah. So never really had gone to a mountain. I went to a fake one, but went to a mountain for the first time this year. And I was getting on a ski lift. And so my friends that I went with have been skiing since they were young. So they're very experienced. And they said, hey, you should come with us this time. So it was really fun, and it was a learning experience. But I got on one of the ski lifts, and as I got up, one of my skis clipped off, like it just caught on someone else's ski and it popped off.
Oh no!
So I lose it as I'm going up, and I'm thinking like the whole time, because I'm still a new skier, I'm not like the best,
right?
And I'm thinking like in the first 2 seconds of me losing it, like, well, I don't want to go to the top of the mountain and only have one ski and have to either slide down my butt or ski on one ski.
So you jump off.
So I didn't ask anyone. I was just like, the moment was there. We were probably 8-9 feet off the ground. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I either go to the mountain, top of the mountain, or I just jump off now and I'll get it. So I jumped off, and my friend's like, what are you doing? They're laughing at me. They're just laughing. So I jump, I face plant in the snow.
Yeah,
I pick myself up, and the operator turns around. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't want to go to the top without a ski." And he goes, "Well, that's because that's why I gave it to the person behind you." And the guy in the ski lift behind is just holding my ski, and he's bringing it up to me. So I had no idea. Again, this is like
I
this
had
is
no
part
idea
of the
either. I might have jumped off too, so don't feel too bad.
Exactly. So the whole ride was stopped.
What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. So they stopped the whole ride, the whole ski lift. They stopped it. People are like groaning and moaning. They're like pointing at me, laughing, like, "What an idiot!"
Yes.
I'm just walking back with my skis. So I just get back in line, and everyone's staring at me. And I think at that point, I just didn't care. I was like, "Hey, you know what? I didn't want to go to the top of the mountain." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Nobody
you have all
told
these
me.
seasoned skiers. Exactly. But now I know. So now I know if you lose a ski, don't jump off the ski lift. They will bring it up to you. So that's my other piece of advice.
See, I might have done that.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad. I feel for you in that moment, right? Like, I don't know what to do. Now, I think, knowing me, I would have wanted to jump off, been too scared, and say, "Dude, I lost my ski. What do I do?" Right?
Yeah.
I would have probably done that. But
that's the moment where I should have done that. I should have asked. And it's like, "Hey, what do I do?" But instead, I'm like freaking out.
You have a moment.
Hurrying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was a good learning lesson.
Good on you. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with Justin Skinner.
Yeah. You can go to the website. My website's www.professional-failure.com.
Right.
And you can find me on Instagram. You can find all the links on the website too. And then all the links to the book, which the book's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. And then I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Justin C. Skinner. So you can find me there. Feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah. And we're going to put links to all of that good stuff in the show notes. Awesome. Justin, this has been a blast. Thank you for sharing all of your stories. And I think you are officially shameless, and I love it.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I know I have shared some stories that I have not shared before, so thank you for drawing them out of me. So
yes, I'm picking out good stuff out of your black box.
Yes, you are. So you do a great job. Love your energy and love your show. So thanks,
man. All right, you have a good one, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds good.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.